In this special edition of Flying Doodles, we're counting down the top 10 airplanes as far as best bang for your buck. I'll be rating each aircraft according to cost, speed, range, comfort, and age, and then coming up with a ranking from worst to first. So let's get started with our countdown. Starting us off at number 10 is the Cherokee 180. The 180 scored a 9.4 with a purchase price of $45,000. Unfortunately, it scored poorly in both comfort and age with only a cabin width of 40 inches. Also holding it back with a score of 4.3 was its cruise speed of 120 knots. It fared slightly better with its range of over 500 miles and its low operating costs. Overall, the Cherokee 180 came in 10th place with an overall score of 5.92. Coming in 9th place is a 1970s Cessna 172. Pictured here is a 50s model, but you can pick up a 70s model for $60,000 and it scored a 7.6. The airplane did poorly in comfort with only a 40-inch cabin. The late 70s model put it right in the middle of the pack for age. It comes in tied for last with a cruise speed of only less than 120 knots. The 172 is fairly economical to fly, although it does not have much range, coming in almost last in that category as well. Overall, the aircraft comes in 9th place with a score of 6.1. In 8th place is the late 60s Beechcraft Bonanza. Its lowest stat was its purchase price, which is well over $90,000. The Bonanza scored average with a cabin width of 42 inches and is slightly older than most of the rest of the airplanes. It did very well in cruise speed though with 165 knots. The airplane did slightly better than average for range, but its high operating costs held it back. The Bonanza is one of my favorite aircraft and came in 8th place with a score of 6.2. Holding the 7th spot is the Cessna 177. The 177 scored poorly for purchase price at around $80,000. It was the best of the bunch for comfort with a 48-inch width cabin and middle of the group for age. The 177 had a pretty average cruise speed of 130 knots. It has a somewhat higher operating cost and the middle of the pack range. The 177 scored a 6.5, which put it in 7th place. Coming in 6th place is the Beechcraft Debonair. The Debonair is a little bit expensive at around $85,000. Its cabin width is only 42 inches, which scores it slightly lower on comfort. It's right in the middle of the pack according to age. The Debonair scored well with a cruise speed of 155 knots. It has a fairly average operating cost and slightly better than average range. The Debonair finished in 6th place with a score of 6.6. Ranking number 5 is the Comanche 250. The Comanche scored fairly well on cost with a $65,000 price tag. It scored better than average for comfort with a 44-inch cabin. It is one of the older aircraft produced in the 1960s. The Comanche scored fairly well in cruise speed with 155 knots. It was average in operating costs and had an impressive range of over 600 miles. The Comanche placed 5th with a score of 6.7. In 4th place is the Grumman Tiger and variants. The Grumman took top honors as far as cost with $40,000. It scored fairly poorly on comfort with only a 41-inch cabin, and it is one of the older aircraft. It finished last place in cruise speed at under 120 knots, although it did quite well in operational costs. Its range was quite poor at only around 350 knots. Overall, it finished in 4th place with a score of 7. Coming in number 3 is the 1970s version of the Cessna 182. This is a newer model, but you can pick out the 70s model for around $80,000. It was fairly comfortable with a 42-inch cabin, and it wasn't that old as compared to some of the other airplanes. The 182 has slightly better than average cruise speed at around 130 to 135 knots. It did fairly well with operational costs, and it has a very impressive range. Overall, the 182 placed 3rd with 7.2 points. In the top 2 is the Bellanca Super Viking. It didn't do all that great as purchase price, about $85,000. It has one of the narrower cabin widths at 40 1/2 inches. A late 70s model makes it one of the newer aircraft. Where it really shines though is its cruise speed around 170 knots. Its operational cost can be slightly higher as it's partially wood, although it has a very nice range. Overall, I scored it 2nd with 7.2 points. Finishing out the top 10 would be the Mooney M20. Its $80,000 price tag is below some of the other competition. It has fairly average comfort with a 44-inch width cabin, and it's one of the newer aircraft from the 1980s. Where the aircraft really shines is its speed and efficiency. It will cruise at 160 knots. It's known to sip fuel, which lowers its operational costs, and also gives it a pretty good range. Overall, the Mooney M20 is my pick for the best bang for your buck airplane. I will be filming in the Dallas area January 23rd through the 25th, so if you have an airplane you'd like to have featured on the show, send me an email. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Flying Doodles. Please click that like and subscribe button and be sure to check out one of our other videos.